Hi, welcome to Lab 5B. In this lab, we're going to be installing the doorbell. So I'm going to start with introducing some of the components. Right over here, this is a doorbell. Now this is the doorbell. I'll take the cover off. And there you go. You got the doorbell itself. This is the inner working parts of the doorbell. I know there's a lot of doorbells nowadays that are remote, wireless, but I'm going to show you how to install a wired doorbell. The other thing that might be a little challenging is there's hundreds of different styles of wired doorbells, but they all have the same basic idea. You're going to see a coil that you're going to be hooking up to. Okay, you got the plunger that moves up and down, and there's two plungers. Okay, one is going to impact both the top and the bottom bell sounding bar, and then the other plunger is just going to impact the bottom bell. All right, so the idea behind the two plungers is one is assigned to the front and one is assigned to the rear. Okay, so depending on the push button that you press, you're going to either move this plunger or you're going to move that plunger. Now they give you a beautiful wiring diagram right on the side here, and they also illustrate what is the top side. One other thing I want to point out, and I'll use my screwdriver so that you can see it, where my screwdriver is pointing through right there, that's where the wiring has to come through. Okay, when you mount this, you want to obviously mount it level, and then these two screws, one here and one there, those are the two that I typically use to mount to a stud. So mounting the doorbell, usually you're going to put it fairly high, okay, so that nobody can grab it, in an area where it's going to project good sound so that you can hear the doorbell. So I'll start off with securing the doorbell in place. So I'm just going to grab a couple screws here. And of course you may want to put a level on that if you're looking for real nice work. And when you're screwing this to your frame, just make sure that you've left this gap so that it's not right behind a stud. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get your wires through there. Okay, so you don't have to tighten it too much because ultimately we will be taking these apart eventually. So just enough that it's secured on. All right, so the next part of your doorbell, and this doorbell operates on a lower voltage, an extra low voltage. So you're going to see a transformer. All right, there's two sides to the transformer. There's the side that has the wires, and you're going to see a white, black, and green. And then there's the other side, that has two screw terminals. All right, so this would be representing the secondary side of the transformer, and you will see a much lower voltage. In this case, the transformer is going to be 16 volts. The side that has the wires is going to be hooked up to a 120 volt circuit. So a transformer, what it does is it drops the voltage down to a desired voltage to operate the equipment. So you're going to take what I call the lock ring off, and you just, it's a threaded ring, okay, and just take it off of the threaded sleeve that contain the wires. And we'll just put this down for a second. Grab your lines and pliers. And on the octagon box, I'd like you to knock out the 1/2 inch knockout. Okay, so I just tapped on the side, which pushed the metal ring out, and then clamp it with your linesman pliers and give it a twist, and that lock ring is going to pop off. You're going to take your doorbell, or sorry, not your doorbell, but your transformer, and you're going to insert the wires. You're going to insert the wires through the hole that you just opened up. Put the lock ring through. And then you're going to tighten the lock ring to the threaded part of the transformer. All right, there we go. The lock ring is now on. Perfect. Okay, so we have that nicely secured to the octagon box. So the next step is we're going to take your brown LVT cable, okay, and it's 2-conductor cable, and you're going to be installing a short piece of cable, in this case from the transformer itself all the way into the doorbell. So you can cut off a little piece. All right, and then what I'd like you to do is take your knife and run it along the center of the cable so that you slice open the jacket. You will, after that, and sometimes the wires are a little sticky to the cable itself if it's been stored for a long time. Okay, so there we go. All right, so once you have a couple wires exposed like that, what I like to do is cut off that sheathing with your side cutters. And then you're going to grab your wire strippers and strip off about 1/2 inch of insulation. This is number 18 gauge, so use the right hole on your wire strippers. And then you can put a curl in each one of these wires. And sometimes the better thing to do is just, you can use the tip of your wire strippers to put the curl in if the hole isn't working. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this side as well, the exact same as I did this side, and I'm going to give you a chance to complete this part of the project. So we'll pause the video, get you to pause the video, and when you return, we'll be at a stage where we'll be able to terminate these 2 wires onto the transformer. Okay, welcome back. So I've stripped both sides. This side I didn't put curls in quite yet, but this side I do have the curls. One thing with this particular setup is what I realized is it's going to be a little difficult to tighten the wires to the set screws with the set screws directly in front of the stud. So I just loosened off the transformer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Phillips driver, and depending on the type of transformer you have, it might be a Phillips, it might be a number 1 driver. And you're just going to take both these wires and attach them to the 2 screws. It doesn't matter which wire goes to what screw, because we're dealing with AC voltage, and it's extra low voltage AC at that. So it's not really conductor color sensitive. So put the loop on in a counterclockwise rotation, and then tighten the set screw. And it's kind of a little difficult to do this, but you want to try to get that wire in so it doesn't slip off. Okay, so it's kind of a little awkward to do this at times. There we go. So once you get that on, then I'm going to just relock the transformer to the box. And sometimes what you can do is use the flat blade driver as well to rotate the lock ring so it's nice and tight. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab another cable, another black cable, or sorry, not black cable, but brown cable, and we're going to put this cable through the same hole. So cut a little piece. And this cable is going to represent the front doorbell. Okay, so this is going to be for your front doorbell, all right? And was a little vague there, so the little piece you could cut maybe about 2 feet. That would be good. Okay, for this one. And I'm just going to write on over here. I'm going to call this my front doorbell. Maybe I'll write it over here. I'll put it over here. Front doorbell. Okay, so the cable that goes over to this area is going to be your front doorbell. Okay, so, and I'm just going to secure this cable just to the top for now so it doesn't bounce all over the place. Alright, so that's the front cable. Grab another cable and we're going to string that through, same size, about 2 feet. It's also going to go through this hole. And we'll put our other cable on this side and we'll call that the back cable. And then you can hammer that down. Alright, so you'll have one cable over here, that's the back cable, and then I labeled the front cable. So I got those two, and then I have 3 cables coming through the doorbell. Typically what you would do if it's a rough-in, where there is no drywall, is you'd figure out where these have to be. You tape them up, alright, you could label them. Label one as front, one as back door, and then one as transformer. Okay, that's what you need to know when you make the termination. Because after you come back, maybe 6 months later after a job, drywall's on, and then you're going to be looking at, you can't see the wires in the wall at that point, so you have to have everything nicely labeled. And usually when you come back, you'll see the 3 cables sticking through the drywall. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video here. I'll let you do this part of it, and then we'll come back. Alright, welcome back. So the next thing you're going to be doing is these 2 cables that are coming out of the transformer. You're going to prep those 2 cables so that they look like this. Alright, these 2 cables here, you're also going to prep those 2 so they look like this. Alright, so we'll take a pause on the video. I'll let you prep your cables, and when we come back, we'll make our terminations. Welcome back. So I just wanted to point out with the transformer, when you focus on your your doorbell, you're going to see 3 terminals, 1, 2, 3. Now they are labeled. The first one says trans, that means transformer. Okay, so that means one of the wires going to this is going to be directly connected to the transformer. And then you're going to see front, okay, that terminal there. Same deal, one of the wires going from this terminal is going to be directly connected to the front doorbell. Okay, or the front doorbell switch. And then you got rear, okay, and one of the wires connected from this terminal is going to be going to the rear push button. Okay, so I've got my 3 wires here. I've put some labels on them. So this one now says front. I've terminated the wires. Okay, I put this label on, and if you have masking tape at home, I recommend using some masking tape and maybe labeling this end front, as this end is called front. Okay, and then this one here is called transformer, and that's already connected to the transformer. This one here doesn't have a label, but that one would be the rear one, and that's going to this one here. All right, so what we're going to do, the very first thing I want you to do after you strip the wires back, and you're looking for at least about a ½ inch of wire stripped on all of these, so I got one more to do, is I want you to take the white wires, 1, 2, 3. So the 3 white wires that are coming through the transformer or through the doorbell. And you might have to push some of these in a little bit just so that they're all even. Just fold the blacks out of the way for now. grab your 3 white wires, and you're going to grab your linesman pliers, and you're going to splice those 3 whites. Trim them, grab a wire cap, put the wire cap on that. Okay, and that's the first stage. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to let you do that part. Okay, next part is we're going to take these 3 wires here. Those 3 blocks are going to be going to these 3 terminals. Okay, so you're going to be looking for the labeling. So obviously this is front. So I'm going to find the black associated with that one, and that would be right over here. Okay, and that's got to go to the front screw. Then I'm going to be looking for the transformer. This is the one that has the transformer label. Okay, this black wire for that cable would go to the transformer screw. And then the one that wasn't labeled, that would be representing the rear screw. So what we're going to do is take your needle nose pliers. Okay, if you don't have needle nose pliers, grab your wire strippers. Okay, that could work as well, or your linesman pliers, and you're just going to grasp the cable and put a curl in it. Okay, and do it for all your wires, all the 3 blacks that are in the doorbell housing. Okay, and then one at a time, you're going to be attaching them to the 3 terminals. These 3 screws are fairly sensitive to over torque. Okay, so you kind of don't want to over tighten it or you're going to break the threading. So I'll start off with the one that I know for sure, that's my front. Okay, and I'm just going to take this and I'm going to wrap it around the screw, tighten that. Okay, and then the next one I'm going to do is the doorbell, and that would be that one with the label there. Or sorry, the transformer. I'll take my transformer black wire, and that's going to go to the middle terminal. And then the last black wire, try to arrange it so that it's going in nicely. The last black is for the rear, and you're going to tighten that. Okay, once that's all done, what you want to do is you want to take these 3 cables and try to push them all the way through, and they would be sitting inside the wall. All right, and then try to manipulate this wire cap so that it's out of the way. So when you put the cover on, okay, everything sits nice and flush. Okay, I'm going to pause the video so that you can do that part. Welcome back. Okay, so the last step is going to be putting the push buttons on those 2 cables, and the process is going to be the exact same for both. Here's the push button that came with my doorbell kit, and it's really simple. You have 2 terminals, okay, on each push button, and over here you have 2 wires. Okay, so it doesn't matter which wire goes to which terminal. All the push button is, it's a switch that creates a continuity path between those 2 wires. When we press the button, okay, the current flows between the 2 wires into this coil, and it's kind of hard to explain what's going on with this because it's a whole lot of electromagnetism, but you magnetize a solenoid moving the plunger, and that causes the doorbell to strike. So I'm going to grab my needle nose pliers, and I'm going to put a curl in all the wires here. All 4 wires, we'll do it all at once. Now obviously these wires would be poking through the exterior side of your house. Okay, so they'd be going through the siding. Okay, and then the switch itself would be physically attached to the siding. So you're going to screw this right into the siding. So you'll take your Phillips driver, loosen off these 2 terminals. And because it's in the siding, there's actually no junction box for this push button at all. Okay, you're going to make your connection, and then you're going to push all the wires back into the house after, so that nobody sees any of these wires. So there's 1 connection, and connections. Okay, and then you typically would push this right back through the house. And then while you're there, you grab one of the screws that comes with the doorbell kit, and you can secure the push button to the side of the house. And this gets screwed right through into the siding. So you want to make sure it's nice and level. Okay, and that's the first push button. And when you do the second push button, it's going to be the exact same thing. All right, so we'll pause the video, and you can get your 2 push buttons installed. All right, so the next thing we're going to be doing is you can take the cover and put your cover on to get that out of the way. All right, and then we're going to be making a termination over here. All right, so this is going to be the doorbell lab, and when we move on to the smoke detector lab, what we're going to end up doing is possibly taking some wires out of this just to make a little bit of room for the smoke detector. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to make some terminations here. So this, if you recall, was the feed. This represented the power coming in from the panel, and that is this cord here with the end. All right, so we're going to strip all those wires so that we can expose at least 1/2 inch of insulation. The doorbell wires are already stripped. Now these wires over here, these three wires associated with this cable, that was for this receptacle. Okay, so what we're going to do is strip these wires as well. The second cable, these wires, is for the switch and the light. So we're going to prep those wires also. Okay, what I like to typically do before I prep the wires is I take my bare bonding conductor, one of the wires, and I'm going to wrap it around a screw that is in the back of the box. And that screw would be this one right over here, or this one here, it doesn't really matter. Okay, and you're going to tighten that screw once you have the bonding wire attached. Then you're going to grab that bonding wire, and you're going to grab this bonding wire, and you're going to splice those two together. And if they're not the same length, it's an easier thing to do is if you just trim them so that they are the same length. And you're going to put your linesman pliers on there, and you're going to twist those. And a lot of people like to put a huge amount of twist on it, but you really don't have to do that. After you've spliced it, just trim off about 1/4 inch so that it's evenly cut. All right. The next thing you're going to do, and I'm just going to touch on the bonding wires here real quick, and I'll do the rest of them afterwards, is you're going to take these 2 green wires. Now with stranded wires, I don't typically splice stranded wires. I splice solid wires, but with the stranded wires, what you do is you twist the strands so that they're nicely contained. You lay them beside the solid wires that are spliced so that the front edge, I'll try to make it so that you can see this. The front part of all 3 wires is roughly at the same point. And then you're going to take your wire cap and you're going to twist the wire cap over all 3 wires. And what's going to happen is the stranded wires are going to be folded into the spliced solid wires. And that makes for a really good connection. And you'll even see the stranded wires starting to twist. Okay, the jacket of the stranded conductor starting to twist into the solid wires. Okay, and that is me splicing my bonds. So the first thing I did again, take my bonding wire, wrap it around the screw. Second thing I did is I spliced my solid bonds, trimmed them, and then attached the green insulated bonds. So I'm going to pause the video here and I'll let you do your bond splices. Welcome back. So now what we're going to do Like I said earlier in a previous video, I always like to do the bonds first. We're just going to tuck these in out of the way. Okay, the next ones we're going to be doing are the whites. Okay, and just like what we just did, I'm going to take the solid whites. Okay, I'm going to splice the solid ones together first, and then we will add the stranded to it. So I like to trim this so that it's roughly 6 inches of wire, just so I don't have an excessive amount of wire sticking out of the box. We're going to strip back roughly about 1/2 inch on both. Line up the two identifieds, splice. Make it small trims so that you cut the ends, and it's going to look like that. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take the stranded wires. There's 2 stranded wires. You're going to, again, rotate the strands so they're all nicely confined. The doorbell one you shouldn't have to do. A lot of times they tin it. So they put a little bit of solder on there so that it pre-confines the strands. Okay, and then once we have these strands all lined up, we're going to line these cables up so that the tips are all roughly at the same point. You're going to grab your wire cap, and then you're going to put your wire cap on. Same thing as we did with the identifier, the bonding wires. And you know it's a good connection if you grab one of the wires and you give it a tug and it doesn't come out. Okay, if it does come out when you give it a tug, it's not tight enough. All right, you shouldn't see any copper strands on the base of those wire caps. If you do, you have the probability of a short circuit. All right, so you can tuck these into the box, and then we're going to move on to the hots. So I'm going to let you pause the video, and then we'll do the hots. Welcome back. Now we're going to prep the hots in the exact same sequence. You take your 2 solid hots, you cut them back so that there's about 8 inches sticking from the box. You strip about 1/2 inch of insulation off. You splice your wires. You chop your wires so that the ends are even. I'm going to grab a wire cap here. You're going to take your 2 stranded wires. You're going to twist the strands so that you nicely can make sure that they're nice and tight in the bundle. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to line up. What I'm doing is I'm pushing the solid wires in because there's a longer solid wire than there is stranded wires. So for me to even them out, it's easier if I push these solids into the box. Okay, so I take all four wires that are black, okay, and I line them all up so that the ends are roughly at the same point, and then I put the wire cap on. And the same process after I've tightened this is I'm gonna pull one of the insulated wires just to make sure that it's nice and tight. And give it a tug, and it doesn't come out. And do a quick little inspection to make sure that there's no strands sticking out of the wire cap. You shouldn't see any copper. You can push this in. And we'll pause the video. I'll let you have a chance to do that. Welcome back. The last stage here is you're going to take your round cover plate and you're going to put this round cover plate onto the octagon box. And you're going to tighten it. Sorry, as I paused, I was looking for my screwdriver there. Okay, you're going to tighten the 832 screws. Those are the screws that typically come with your box. Okay, when you saw an earlier part of this video, you might have not noticed that there was screws in there. During the break, I put some screws into that box because it was one of my used boxes that I had in the garage, so the screws went missing. Anyway, these screws do come with the boxes. Typically, they'll be embedded in them. So you're going to cover that up. One thing to note is this box would typically, if it's going to be housing a transformer, okay, you wouldn't want to be burying that box inside of a wall. A lot of times this would be maybe installed in a crawl space where you have access to the transformer later on so it doesn't get buried, or in an attic or something like that. Okay, I'm also going to throw a light bulb onto my light, and then we're going to test it. Okay, well, I'll test it as a demonstration so you can see it works. But before you guys test anything, I need to inspect your work, or Mac will have to inspect your work, just so that we can verify all your wires are good to go. So I just want to rehash the inspection process. Okay, before, what we want to see is I want to see all the wires and all the receptacles, the switch, the light, the transformer, and in this box. Okay, so what you can do is you can take pictures of them for me, okay, or you can do video for me so that I can see that everything has been wired correctly. All right. So a video or pictures with no cover plates, and I need the receptacles pulled out so I can physically see all the wires. Okay. Now just so that you can see that it's going to work and what would happen here, I'm going to plug mine in. All right. And I'll show you what happens. So we plug it in. All right, and immediately, if you've hooked it up right, your doorbell push buttons are going to light up, and this is lit up because the switch is actually on right now. All right, so when I hit a doorbell, this is the front one, you'll hear the double chime. That's common of the doorbell. Now, when you hit the rear one, you just hear one chime, so that somebody knows it's the person in the back of the house. Okay, to test your receptacles. Okay, and I just want to point out one thing with these receptacles. I forgot to mention before. These are classified as tamper-resistant receptacles. What that means is there's a little plastic slide inside the receptacle, and they're designed to stop kids from jamming objects into the receptacle. So you have to put even pressure between both sides for you to be able to actually put something in there. So a lot of kids will try to put a knife or something into a receptacle. That doesn't work with the tamper-proof ones. So I have a plug tester, okay? Now, if my plug is operating correctly, okay, there's a little pattern on my plug tester. You're gonna see that your two orange lights are gonna light up, all right? So you can take your plug tester and you can insert it, if you had a plug tester, into the receptacle, both ports, and you'll see the light up, the two lights. That means it's been done correctly. Now, if you don't have a plug tester, which I'm sure you guys don't because they weren't put into your kits, what you can use is a corded drill or anything that has a cord. All right, and you can put it into the receptacle and press the trigger. A hair dryer would work as well. Anything that has a lamp is a perfect thing to try out. Okay, that has a cord. Okay, and it should work. Just to verify. And the very last thing is the light switch. Flick the switch, the light goes on. Turn the switch, the light goes off. And that's the way to test it. You can also use a voltmeter, okay, but at the very minimum, you want to insert a plug tester just to make sure that the wiring has been done correctly to the receptacles. And that is the testing part of this part of the project.